Alright, Shalom. You reached the He Pray channel. My name is YAHAWAH. But first and foremost, I want to say, call Holayim, Yahawah, Bahashim, Yahawah Shai, Bahashim, Harakak. Double honors to the apostles and elders of 71319, where I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to the Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people will come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So this is not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that die in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah as return, including our King Marshah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahawah Shem Yahushua for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah Yahawah Shem Yahushua allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. So I'm going to use AI as usual. Um, so, the title of this video is going to be Yahawah is going to kill all false brethren / prophets, including in GMS. So we'll start with this first scripture. I think they quoted it wrong. Oh no, they didn't. This is First Peter's chapter 4. I'm gonna start at verse 17. Well, I'll start at verse 16. It says, "Yet if any man suffer as a Israelite," because the disciples weren't calling themselves Christians. Yahweh Shai wasn't referring to himself as a Christian. The Apostle Paul wasn't referring to himself as a Christian. That was something that was given on to them later during or in the region of Antioch. It says, "Let him not be ashamed." So no matter what tribulation is set before you, don't be ashamed of it, man. And it could come in many forms, which ultimately everything that you go through is a test to see if you're going to fold, to see if you were actually obedient despite the circumstance. It says, "Let him not be ashamed, but let him glory YAHAWAH on this behalf. Verse 17, it says, "For the time is come," and we're entering in that time now. It has to happen because, in St. Matthew it says, "But before these things," let's get that so it can set in your mind, the condition of the battle, right? So I'm gonna start at verse 4. This is St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 4. It says, "And Yahushua answered and said unto them, Take warning, or heed that no man deceive you." And that deception comes through words, false doctrine, false information, fake news, that is contrary to the 100% doctrine given to men by the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am anointed," saying that the Most High is dealing with them, which a lot of people say that. A lot of people think that, you know, they think that Yahweh Shem Yahushua or whatever name they put to a certain deity is dealing with them and exclusively with them to justify themselves and to comfort themselves, you know, thinking that that certain deity is going to overlook their wickedness. Me personally, I deserve what I get, and I'm going to get what I deserve, man. Nothing more, nothing less. Yahweh Shem Yahushua Ratazah be that I receive righteousness and not wickedness and destruction. From the longevity of things, it seems that, my prayers are being answered to do things righteously and to fine tune and to, have the ability to see where I'm going off. It says, "And shall deceive many." So many are deceived. And that's the setup in this movie, that many are going to be deceived. And, these Christians and these people in the world, they don't read the scriptures. They don't understand the scriptures. Because then they will, make an effort, to prevent themselves being one of those that are destined to be deceived. And, this deception among Israel is coming through these apostates and these false camps, and also men's emotions. It says, "And ye shall hear of wars," and really we're beyond this point because these wars are already, starting, but nonetheless, we're still hearing, reports of, certain skirmishes and, certain conflicts here and there. And, that's been going on since America's inception. But it has been intensified because we're in a time of the deliverance, you know, which is likened onto a woman's trial and travail during labor. It says, in reports or rumors of wars, see that you be not troubled. So, these people, they're uh, they're afraid. You know, they're trying to save their life by calling themselves doomsday prepping. You know, but it's all gonna be to no avail, right? Um, Hold on, I'm in the wrong chapter. Just bear with me real quick. Um, I'll start from right here. The second Ezra chapter 16, verse 37. It says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. You know, um, let me get another scripture. I believe it's this one. It was at 36. It's 36, I think. Hold on. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 39. Start at verse 27. It says, all these things are for good to the godly. So to the sinners, they are turned into evil. But the point is in verse 28. It says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, which, are a part of the plagues, which in their fury lay on sore strokes in the time of destruction. And, those strokes represent the killing, the amount of killing. It says, in the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. So, these spirits are going to be in their full perfection in these days, in these times. It says, fire and hell and famine and death, all these are created for vengeance. And the mass majority of you are going to die in famine. Teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction, you know, and that's going to be in these wars, man. And the teeth can also represent these bullets, you know, Also, the teeth animals, because the animals are going to get busy, you know. And you can even relate wild beast to, these 2/3, because they're likened as what brute beast, which is spoken of by Peter and Jude, right? This is Second Peter chapter 2, verse 12. But these, as natural brute beast, made to be taken and destroyed. So their role is ultimately to be destroyed. These are these hypocrites, these false prophets, these false brethren. Those that are worried about the walls closing in. It says, speak evil of the things that they understand not. And, YAHAWAH Shem Shade, give everyone the same amount of understanding, because he had to, facilitate a separation, you know, from his jewels and his, those made of inferior materials, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. Right. I mean, this applies to, a lot of these false prophets that lead these certain organizations once knew the doctrine and then changed the doctrine and teaching things that are more befitting and promote longevity of the so-called white man who is Esau. This is Jude chapter 1, verse 10. But these speak evil of those things which they know not. That's why the scriptures tell you to examine first. But since these certain individuals don't examine and study, you know, them coming in at the end of the movie, they're the main ones trying to critique a certain scene that you would have to be privy of the beginning of the movie to understand. It says, but what they know naturally, what they know of the world, and that's something that sometimes sometimes I'll just call a spade a spade. Sometimes I even interject themes of the world, that's not necessarily have anything to do with the spirit of what you need to be in the truth, right? So they basically use the wisdom of this world to dictate the wisdom of Yahawah Shem Shah. It's just gonna be a second first. This is First Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6. Is how it says, "Howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are perfect." Those that have the, the Holy Spirit resting upon them. Yet not the wisdom of this world. And that's true, because when you're around like-minded men, your conversation is tied to the truth, man. And our conversations will probably, make a worldly nigga stomach turn. It says, "Nor of the princes of this world that come to naught," because the Most High, he setteth up kings and he removeth kings. This is First Corinthians chapter 3, verse 19. It says, "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with YAHAWAH Shem Yahushua." And ultimately it is, because it leads you further and further away from him. For and the wisdom of this world basically crosses out Yahushua, man. It says, "For it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness." And that's what he's going to do with Esau, and that's what he's going to do with those that are going to be destroyed. Jumping down, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, "For our rejoicing is this, the testimony of our conscience, that in simplicity and godly sincerity, not with fleshly wisdom, but by the grace of the Most High, we have had our conversation in the world, and more abundantly toward you." You know, um, reading it again in the NLT, it says, "Yet when I am among mature believers, I do speak with words of wisdom," right? "But not the kind of wisdom that belongs to this world." So our conversation, we don't talk about the same things that you regular niggas talk about in the world. I don't think I ever talked about sports or media takeout or whatever the fuck it's called with brothers that were in this truth, outside from a certain individual who fell out. You know, it says, "Or to the rulers of this world who are soon forgotten." Even Donald J. Trump, he's gonna be soon forgotten, man. So going back to St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, it says, "See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So despite these things, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is encouraging patience, suffering, right? It says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." And we're starting to see that just on Christmas morning. You fucking devils. They attacked Nigeria, And, they're posturing and, getting ready to attack Venezuela. And possibly the main reason is Russia confiscated that landmass that had that exuberant amount of minerals and resources, man. This is a resource war, because this economy is crashing. So they're trying to hedge their bets, so to speak. So with Russia being decisive in victory through the spirit and power of YAHAWAH, they took over that region of land in Ukraine that had that agreement to pay back all the military equipment in which the United States has sent and the money that it has sent. And now it's, in the hands of the bear. Almost like an eagle accidentally dropping a big salmon and it falls right into, the mouth of a bear. That eagle's gonna be like, fucking shit, fuck, shit. He's gonna be mad, man. And that's exactly what happened. As far as, you know, Russia taking over Ukraine, basically, they already conquered Ukraine, man. So therefore, that eagle got to look for a new fish, or go to war with that bear over that resource. So Venezuela is that new fish. Nigeria is that new fish. It says, and there shall be famines, and these wars are going to produce famines, man. It's going to shut down shipping lanes. They're already tit for tat as far as confiscating oil tankers. I got to reaffirm if it's true or not, but they said that Iran captured 2 United States oil tankers, you know? So a lot of that is going on. No matter where, whether it be Europe, South America, or in the Middle East, and also in the Pacific, Asia Pacific, and and pestilence. So they're gonna be unleashing diseases, man, to get you to get another jab. Because their whole thing is to reduce world population through vaccines, through wars, through engineered famines, through strife. You know, it says in earthquakes in various places, because that's what the word diverse means. It means various. So there has been earthquakes. There was, I believe, a 6 point on the Richter just a few days ago, man. And then you have this weather anomaly going on, which shows that Esau is using his weather weapons, against civilian populations, and they have a certain laser that can cause it to rain or cause it not to rain. Mind you, this devil, he's wiser as Daniel, as the scriptures say. Verse 8, it says, all these are the beginning of sorrows. So these are just the beginning of sorrows, man. You know, it says then, so real soon, the persecution is going to come. Shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you? You know, there's going to be a point in time where it's going to be a very offensive thing to be an Israelite. And to be an Israelite, that has 100% doctrine, man. You know, they're going to label you terrorists. They're going to be labeling you enemies of the state, maybe even public enemy number one. You know, you had to count the cost. Are you ready to potentially die in a horrific manner? Are you ready to get your head chopped off, man? A lot of people are not. A lot of people are going to save their life by getting the chip in their mind, but really they're going to lose it. They're going to lose it anyway. You have a better shot of being in obedience to YAHAWAH Shem Yahushua and dying in a manly, righteous manner than to be a sellout, man. To be a traitor, you have to have the spirit on you to find death acceptable for the glorification of YAHAWAH Shem Yahushua. It says, and ye shall be hated of all nations, because we speak against, starting with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and all the men on down, we speak against all these heathens, man. So therefore, you know, if you tell them the truth about somebody to somebody or to someone, they're gonna find it offensive, and they're gonna begin to hate you, even though if it's the truth. Um, right. This is Galatians chapter 4, verse 16. It says, am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? You know? So a lot of people, you know, they can't handle the truth, man. Verse 10, it says, and then shall many be offended. And that's when, you know, the speed is going to be put on. You false niggas, man. That's that fiery trial, man. That's the fire that you're gonna be put through. And a lot are gonna fail, man. It says, and shall betray one another. One of the things that I get from, being separated, going on 13 years, because I came into the truth in 2010, is that the Most High had ample opportunity to take his wisdom and knowledge and understanding straight out of my mouth, man. He had the opportunity to bug me out, in which I wouldn't believe in the things that I believe in. One thing, there's some things that was ordained that I'm not proud of, and that I regret, as far as like making videos and actually acting like I really care about certain things, when at the end of the day, it's like, who gives a fuck? Because then if I cared about those things, it will make everything about me and not him, and him is YAHAWAH. So therefore, I glory in YAHAWAH for the fact that, I fell in his hands. And, a lot of people will have, something to say about it until it happens to them. It says, and shall hate one another. And there's going to be a point where the Most High is going to put the spirit out there that, there's going to be a lot of hatred among uh, Israel. And many false prophets shall rise. So there's going to be apostates. There's going to be false prophets, which a lot of you, I believe that you pay for your views and your subscribers, man. Why else would, random weirdo not even, wouldn't even be looking in this type of niche, be on your channel commenting? Because, you want that ego inflated, you know. Um, it says, and shall deceive many. And a lot of you are already deceived by, these worldly religions, believe in these false deities like white Jesus. Satan has already got you, unless the Most High opens up your eyes and, you repent. It says, and because iniquity, which is exponential sins, shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. And, you starting to see it, man. These people, these worldly people, these people in the world, they don't have no consideration of others. They only care about themselves until, that death angel was sent. And then when they're viciously removed, then, the world mourns for a fucking wicked ass nigga, because they're wicked, man. Doesn't it not say the world will love its own? This is St. John chapter 15, verse 19. It says, "If ye were of the world would love his own." You know, but because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. You know, and it's a it's a spiritual thing, man. Because remember, well, at least you shouldn't be. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Which principalities is a hierarchy of intelligence or demons. And the higher you go, the more powerful they get, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. You know, so the world is possessed by these certain demons, man. You know, that is set against you. And I brought it out. I wasn't, well, I wasn't, but I'll bring it out now. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter, or the book of Sirach, chapter 33, verse 14. It says, "Good is set against evil, and life against death. So is the godly against the sinner, and the sinner against the godly." You know, and that's what you have to uh, understand and, move in discretion and circumspectly. Going back to St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 13, "But he that shall endure until the end," and the end and tells you in those chariots, man. There's been a lot of you that curse somebody else out and you didn't even endure until the end. So it's not about him that willeth, but him that let. It says the same shall be saved. And this gospel, the good news of the kingdom, shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. You know, so we're fastly approaching the end, man. You know, and soon there's going to be a famine of the word where you people won't have the truth at all. The Most High is going to remove it because it has accomplished its course. Going back to First Peter's chapter 4, verse 17, it says, "But the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of YAHAWAH Shem Yahweh Shai." So, you know, which is, dealing with those that know that they're Israelites. And this is an individual thing, man. Just like it's said that there's elect in other camps. There's a lot of elect in Great Millstone, but then there's a lot of wicked niggas in Great Millstone. Look at how many wicked niggas fell out, which I really don't, me personally, I know there's a lot that fall out in these other camps, but, it's more emphasized, it seems, in the spirit when it's Great Millstone. Because when you're in Great Millstone, you're supposed to hold yourself to a high standard, a high degree. You know, you're supposed to be gung ho about the truth, about Yahawah Shem Shine, Great Millstone. And then, there's a lot of individuals that take that for granted, not knowing that, there's individuals that are outside of Great Millstone that will give their last breath to be in it. To take your spot. It says, and if it first began at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of Yahawah Shem Yahushua? And that's, all you 2/3. And within the 2/3 is the false prophets of the 2/3, the false brethren of the 2/3. Those that didn't apply the scriptures of the 2/3. And if the righteous scarcely be saved, so the righteous are scarcely going to be saved, man. It's not going to be a huge number. And matter of fact, the Most High is showing even more mercy in these times, considering the last time he only saved 8 souls, which, let me see something real quick. Which, that's fitting, man. Which stands for new beginnings, resurrection, and renewal. It says the number 8 symbolizes a fresh start, as seen in Noah's Ark, where 8 people were saved from the flood, marking a new era for humanity. And I laugh because when you add the numbers of my apartment number, it equals 8, and it all makes sense. Me coming out here was a new beginning. It says, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? They're all going to be destroyed, man. It says, wherefore let them that suffer according to the will of Yahawah commit the keeping of their souls to him in well-doing as unto a faithful creator. Reading it in the NLT, it says, so if you are suffering in the manner that pleases the Most High, keep on doing what is right I feel like I was wronged, but it never kept me from going back into the world. Contrary to popular belief, I still have immense respect and admiration for the apostles and elders. I could have the heart to forgive things that were done and to, show mercy. And if the situation presented itself, if it was written in my lot to uh, put words to actions, then Yahweh He give me a righteous spirit and direct my steps in righteousness as he's done and continues to do. I'll do it because always try to look at a believer as if they're Yahawah. It says, entrust your lives to the Most High who created you. And that's what a lot of you don't do. You don't fall into the hands of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, man, in righteousness, not in wickedness. Meaning you don't trust in him. You don't believe his power. You don't believe his might. You don't believe he controls all things. You don't believe that he's going to be good on his word, man. You think the Heavenly Father is a liar. When all throughout the scriptures it says that he's a man that he shall not lie. He's made good on everything he said. You know, that's why he said, don't worry about food and raiment, man. You see. But, that's just the spirit of unbelief. It says, this is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. What is to be content? Contentment, mid 15th century contentment, satisfactory payment of a debt, a sense now obsolete, meaning or seek content, meaning that happiness which consists in being satisfied with present conditions. So your happiness, your mind state is still maintained despite your whatever condition you're in. In this truth, you experience highs and lows. You might be living in your car for a period of time, man. You might be homeless a period of time. A period of time you might have your own apartment, or the Most High might put you in a house. Sometimes you might have money to go spend on clothes. Spend a couple of thousand on clothes or whatever, or a couple of hundred. Sometimes you might be just wearing the same shit. Not that, none of us want to be decked out. I want Giuseppe's. I want Gucci slides. You know, I want the, what do they call it? Balenciaga. I want a Balenciaga sweatshirt, sweater. But that's not important, man. appearance ain't important, man. You know, you are concerned about your outward appearance. You need to be worried about your inward appearance. Going back to Timothy chapter 6, First Timothy chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "For we brought nothing into this world," you know? And who said that best? Wasn't it not Job? He giveth and he taketh away. Let me see if I can find that. This is Job chapter 1, verse 20. It says, "Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshiped," because he was in mourning, and said, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb," meaning he didn't come into the world with nothing, "and naked shall I return thither." And when you die, you ain't going to return to the spiritual world with nothing, man. Yahweh gives you certain things, and Yahweh have taken away, and he could take away certain things, man. And you'll know that by experience. There's been jobs that I've lost that, hindered the truth. It's been women that I lost that hindered the truth. Certain situations didn't go my way because they probably would have hindered the truth. It says, "Blessed be the name of Yahweh." In all this Job sinned not, nor charged Yahweh foolishly. Right. So whether it be good or evil, you always got to maintain the thought pattern of Barak Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, the water Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, Salaki Yahweh Bashim Yahshua. No matter what. Even when I left the Great Millstone and I was driving back home, I believe, if I could remember, I was just praying, man, you know, and I believe everything's going to turn out all right. Ultimately, because shit, whether I die and come back through the loins, I'm still an Israelite. But that's not my intent to do that. My intent is to die for Yahweh Shah, man. And that's been something that has been in my spirit, on my spirit, way before I even came into the truth. To be a martyr, to be a witness. So going back to AI, it says, "For the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of the Most High. And if it first began at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of the Most High?" Keyword breakdown: judgment, Greek, krima. I believe where you might get crime or krima. But root idea: a decree, decision, sentence, often a judicial verdict. Spiritually, Yahweh passing a verdict on his own first, cleaning house before he destroys the rest. Which is, I guess you could call it a purification process. You know, house, Greek, I, aikos, meaning house, household, family, dwelling, precept. The house of God equals people, his congregation, his church, and that's starting. That's those that have the 100% truth, man. And then those that don't. First Timothy chapter 3 verse 15, the house of the Most High, which is the church of the living power. Ephesians 2 and 19, of the household of God. So in First Peter 4 and 17, it's saying the sentence, the verdict starts with those claiming to be in this truth, but a bunch of demons, man. It says Israel, that includes Israel by blood, those in camps, those calling on the name and still being wicked, which you got a lot of those too, man. Individuals that still calling the name, but are they got a reputation of being a wicked ass nigga, man. But they want you to think that they're an angel of light, man, or as if they're humble now or they repented. Old Testament root precept. Peter is pulling directly from Ezekiel. Ezekiel 9 and 6. Slay utterly old and young. So whether it be an old nigga or a young nigga, or whether it be male or female, both maids and little children, even your little children are gonna be slaughtered, man. And women, and a lot of you women, especially you 2/3 nigga woman, a lot of you women need to get put to death, man. And you're going to be put to death. Ain't nobody gonna give a shit. No one's gonna cry for you. No one's gonna lay flowers on you. You're just gonna be shit in the street. Like the shit you lived as a person. The shit you are. It says, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, which that mark represents the Torah, which means being exempt from judgment, man. And begin at my sanctuary. Begin at those who know that they're Israelites. And like I always said, if I ain't right, man, I'm ready to go right now, man. I've been ready to go since I was a kid, man. I don't like holding back progress. I don't like being part of the problem. I don't like being wicked. I don't like not doing the right thing, man. I don't like being around wicked niggas. I don't like being around a wicked environment. I don't like wicked bitches. I don't like wicked niggas. I don't like wicked brethren, man. Matter of fact, I hate it. Because, I feel like their bullshit is going to rub off on me and I'm going to start becoming just like them. And I felt that influence when I was around certain individuals. I had to cut it off. Being mad over not having a bitch, or because of a breakup. That's a demon, man. And then when I'm in my right mind or whatever, I'm reflecting and thinking like, damn, all the bitches you done fucking had before you were in the truth. And reasoning and further reflecting, I was like, that bitch wasn't shit any fucking ways. She was a fucking whore. So it had to be a demon. And, the influence was there was another individual that was crying and mad about not having no bitches. And then there was another individual that was trying to make hunting down bitches a sport. And then all the fucking drinking. I wasn't drinking and walking in San Francisco prior to me being in GMS and fucking with people. There was a point where I was like, damn, man, this ain't right. Because I cussed out this dreaded head nigga and I felt bad about it, you know? It was when we were in East Palo Alto at the gas station. I remember a lot of shit, man, you know? And, coming into an environment where there was a lot of alcohol. It's not good for alcoholic. I could admit that. I could take accountability for that, and I took accountability for that. I pissed off a lot of people, man. Said a lot of shit. And the way I look at it, I try to, cut you with truth. So, truth is gonna stick to you like a thorn, more so than a lie. Oh, that nigga, he just lying. He just talking shit. Nah, it's gonna cut deeper when I'm telling you the truth about yourself or the truth about circumstance. I kind of like that better. Just telling the truth and having the truth just fucking hurt a motherfucker damn near, man. But then again, as the scriptures say, it could be a two-edged sword. It says, judgment begins at the sanctuary, equals begins at the house of the Most High. Peter is echoing that. So there's going to be a lot of, especially when the Gestapo really puts belt to ass, there's going to be a lot of individuals that's going to deny this truth, man. And it might be even prominent individuals that you would never think. A lot of you, without discernment, you didn't think that nigga YAHAWAH was a fucking demon. But certain men that have, more discernment than others spotted them out from the get-go. And the spirit let him run his course. And a lot of you still think he's a man of the Lord, man. Despite him playing like he's humble, but never sincerely apologized to nobody, man. And he's done all types of wickedness to individuals, trying to destroy them, to get them back in the world. But when it's his turn, he can't take it. He can't handle it. And that's part of his exit interview, man, with YAHAWAH Shunyao Shah. You're not only your conduct, the actions that you take, you're going to have to give an account for all the words and the actions that you say, man. You're going to have an exit interview. It says the scene, Ezekiel 9, chapter 4, verse 6, Yahweh sends a man with the inkhorn to set a mark on those that sigh and cry, the angels that slay everyone else. And the command is, begin at my sanctuary. They start with the ancient men, the elders, the leaders in front of the temple. You know, all you niggas who ain't right. Most High is gonna make a very severe and stern separation between those that he's dealing with and those that he's not dealing with. And it don't matter if you in a group or not, man. The Most High has mercy on whom he wants to have mercy on, man. And those of you that, you know, don't consider yourself and you don't have no compassion or mercy for others, wait until it happens to you, man. Then you're gonna be looking around like who done it? Like all these other motherfuckers. It says sanctuary, Hebrew mikdash, meaning sanctuary, holy place, temple. Spiritually, the place and people that are supposed to be holy and separate. So you're supposed to be holy and separate, man. Holy and separate is basically the same thing, to be separated from the spirit of this world. You know, this is Psalms chapter 79, verse 1. They have defiled thy holy temple. They have laid Jerusalem on heaps. You know, and how do you defile the temple? By speaking false doctrine. This is Malachi chapter 3, verse 1 through 3. It says, YAHAWAH Shem Yahushai comes to his temple like a refiner's fire to purify the sons of Levi, which, you know, Levi was known for priesthood, and now we all are priests. We're a nation of priests. Mark, Hebrew, Tav, literally a sign, mark, sign of exemption. It's basically the blood on the doorpost, man, for the death angels to pass over your house. Or the angels look at you and they see that mark on you, man. You know, I equate it to, you know, the third Venom movie when he had that fuck. Let me see what the fuck he had. Yeah, yeah, the Codex. You know, the key associated with Venom in the comic book storyline is the Codex, which is described as the key that could free Noel, the creator of the symbiote, which Esau's a Esau's a trip, man. He really thinks that he's gonna be able to conquer the Most High. It says Noah has spent billions of years searching for this key, which is crucial for his escape from the prison of Clintar. Additionally, the comic Venom Lethal Protector explores Eddie Brock's transformation into Venom and his relationship with the symbiote, marking a significant moment in his character's development. So we have the Codex. Let me see, just the Codex.
How did Venom and Eddie form the Codex? I mean, what is this Codex actually is? In the comics, whenever a symbiote leaves its host, it leaves behind a codex, a sort of chip in the host's spine that links them to the symbiote hive mind, but Venom, the Last Dance movie, puts a twist on it. When Eddie was dying after Riot's attack in the first movie, Venom did something no other symbiote had done before. He bonded with Eddie even after he was technically dead. This unique bond is what formed their codex. So in the comics, a codex is left whenever a symbiote bonds with a human, but in the movie, it only happens when a symbiote...
That's not what I wanted to see.
I'm so done with the multiverse! Brock and Venom can't comprehend the idea of superheroes, but are well aware enough of multiverses that Venom can make meta commentary on them. Hola, bitches. Hola, bitches. We're Venom! Regardless of how sillier and sillier these entries get, Tom Hardy's dual performance is one of the best things going on in film currently. I will miss it. Okay, sir, we want to build a room in the new surveillance building that is circular and dark as I'm talking midnight. Then a thin strip of monitors will circle the room on the wall, displaying surveillance video in super grayscale washed out formats. This way, the agents can stand on a raised platform in the middle of the room and watch videos no matter which way they turn. It's highly inefficient and will be hugely expensive, but on the plus side, it will look pretty.
Slock out to go to the bathroom. Let me see. Well, I mean, shit. If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. And the point I'm making is that you could equate that, the aliens, so-called, those beings from Clintar or whatever, came and they could see that Kodak every time, Venom was in his form. And, that's equivalent to the angels. They know who has the Thara, which is a sign of exemption. Exemption from what? Judgment. Spiritually, that spiritual seal, Revelation 7:3, till we have sealed the servants of our power in their foreheads with this what? This knowledge. Ephesians 1:13, sealed with that Holy Spirit of promise. Promise for what? To be saved. It says, slay utterly, Hebrew, nakah, harag, contextually, to smite, strike, kill. And everyone thinks that so-called Jesus Christ is coming to bring roses and kisses. It says he's coming to bring destruction, man. And who's going to be a part of that destruction? You fucking people, man. It says, used for Yahawah's judgments. He uses angels, armies, plagues, etc. Overlay, Ezekiel 9 is a vision of targeted judgment. Yahawah marks the sincere, kills the rest, and starts at the leaders, ancients in the sanctuary. This is the spirit as First Peter's 4, or this is the same spirit as First Peter's 4:17. Yahawah judging false brethren and false prophets. No camp exemption. So there ain't gonna be no camp there ain't even gonna be no camps in the time of Jacob's trouble, man. When all hell break loose. It says, now we plug in false brethren, prophets to those texts. Yahawah targets his own people first. Amos chapter 3, verse 2, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. And that's the reason why no other group of people went through captivity. And all these nations had you niggas in captivity, man. That's why it's a triangular trade. It's not just transatlantic. That's just dealing with the southern kingdom coming over here. When I say triangular, I'm talking about Israel dispersed throughout all these nations to serve captivity, man. For A lot of you niggas who ain't really learned that, call yourself trying to correct someone all the time. This is Luke chapter 12, verse 47 through 48. The servant who knew his Lord's will and did it not gets many stripes. So if you go back into the world, you're going to get many stripes. You take your hand off the plow, you're going to get many stripes. And hey, everything that Apostle Tahar ever said about, if you leave GMS, well, I'm not trying to mock or use a different voice. I'll just speak regular. I believe he said if you leave GMS, or if you think the Most High is dealing with you, do the work on your own, or something to that effect. He said it a long time ago. If the Most High is dealing with you, do the work on your own, or something he said to that effect. Or what was the most recent thing? Oh, if you took some sort of break, you know, and the Most High doesn't allow you to come back, right? Which he said that would be frightful for him, and it's understandable. But if you have a relationship with YAHAWAH and Yahawashi, then he's gonna put you, man. If you're the elect, I'll say he's gonna put you right back where he wants you to be, regardless of what you want to do, man. You know, the elect is always gonna be right back out there teaching the word, regardless. But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the Most High put me in all those different scenarios, and till this day, He's allowed me to continue to do this work. And that's more than a lot of you niggas, man. A lot of you niggas, you just went right back into the world, and God knows what you're doing now, man. Only he knows what you're doing. And then a lot of you that talk shit, wait until it's your turn. It says, Luke chapter 12, verse 47 through 48, the servant who knew his Lord's will and did it not gets many stripes. And that includes applying the scriptures and being obedient to the scriptures, man. Romans chapter 2, verse 9 through 11, tribulation and anguish of the Jew first, which those that know that they're Israelites, and also the Gentile, which those that don't know that they're Israelites, but are Israelites by blood, meaning they were in other lands following these heathen customs. Right? It says, for there is no respect of persons with the Most High. So to the Most High, there ain't no respect of persons, man. Anyone can get it. So anyone who knows they're Israel, calls on the name Yahweh and Yahawashi, holds a Bible, wears fringes, does videos, but teaches falsely, abuses the flock, or lives wickedly is a prime target. That includes men in GMS if they're off, because Yahweh is not a respecter of camps, right? False prophets within Israel. Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 1 through 2. Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture. And how do they do that? With false doctrine. Jumping down verses 14 through 16, it says, prophets of Jerusalem commit adultery, walk in lies, Yahweh says they strengthen the hands of evildoers. Hearken not unto the words of the prophets that prophesy unto you. You have to be able to discern, man. And a little clue is follow those that people hate the most. Because mind you, the truth uh, makes people become your enemy. So the truth is the ones that people hate the most, which is, Great Millstone. They have the truth. They have the 100% doctrine. Now, is everybody in Great Millstone of the elect? Hell fucking no. And being in Great Millstone don't make you of the elect, man. Which a lot of you niggas in Great Millstone think. It doesn't make you of the elect. This is Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 3, verse 4. And I'm not saying Great Millstone ain't nothing but a bunch of niggas, because they're all the ambassadors of YAHAWAH Shem Yahshua. I'm just referring to you niggas that are in Great Millstone, man. Not the elect that are in Great Millstone. Just like the niggas in all these other alphabet groups. There's a lot of niggas out there, man. A lot of niggas that Yahweh Shem Yahshua is going to take vengeance upon. It says, Ezekiel chapter 13, verse 3 through 4 says, woe unto the foolish prophets that follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. Man. Ezekiel chapter 14, verses 9 through 10, if the prophet is deceived, Yahweh deceived him. So Yahweh sent the lying spirit to deceive you. And, if I'm really wasting my time, hey, Baba Kashah, Yahweh Shem Yahshua, as I always pray, let me go back to the spirit world, man. Straight up. Let me go back, as I always ask for. Like I said, since I was a kid. But until then, I'd rather, do the right thing. Do the will of Yahweh Shem Yahshua. And who could talk any shit? You will be lucky to be in my position, man, if you were ever in my position. To be 13 years and having all the shit that happened to you and said about you and done onto you and still be doing the work and still calling on the names of Yahweh Shem Yahshua, teaching the correct doctrine. You don't even know if you were molested or niggas was fucking with you in your sleep, but they got pictures of you and all types of other shit. you know, you don't even know, and you have to endure all the ridicule and being cursed out every week, despite you trying to just do the work and pleading to just be allowed to do the work. You know, that wasn't if that was of Yahweh Shem Yahshua, then how come he didn't never do it and put the spirit on any other camp to do those things? Is just that camp because of that nigga, right? It says, and the prophet and the inquirer both bear the punishment together. See, it really boils down to, a lot of that you're gonna have to pay, man. You're going to have to pay if I'm of the elect and you're not. And even if you are not of the elect, man, it's all good. It's just a movie. The Most High, he prepared me for this truth when I was in the world, man. He prepared me for different characters, proud niggas, deceiving niggas, niggas that, uh, are just out to use you. They're only they're only your friend because you got your wallet open. I was prepared for all. I experienced all that shit, man. You know, to the point where I had enough wisdom to be wise, to be under to act like I was simple. But it says any man, regardless of camp tag, who teaches lies, adds or removes from doctrine, puts himself over the flock, which that deals with pride, or uses the ministry for filthy lucre, extortion. Brothers probably might steal from you, niggas will steal from you, clout or abuse is in the Ezekiel 13, Jeremiah 23 category. And Yahweh said, begin at my sanctuary. So that's elders, heads of camps. The majority of people that fell out were heads of camps. Teachers, top men, including anyone in GMS that's secretly a false brother. We're in a time where things are going to be exposed, things are going to be revealed, man. And like I said, man, can't none of you really make any type of video, like a sob story when you already been warned, man. You've been warned, but you didn't listen to the messenger because you didn't have no respect for the messenger. And that's a reoccurring theme all throughout the scriptures, man. You didn't like it, guys, so you didn't believe the shit that he said until, his words came to pass and it brought onto you misfortune. That's the same thing with wicked niggas all throughout the scriptures. Just because they don't like a guy or what he's saying or how he said it, you write him off as an evildoer, man. It says false brethren inside the house, but not sealed, hidden wicked among believers. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. There shall be false teachers among you. Many shall follow their pernicious ways, which I believe pernicious means wicked. Let's go find out. Right, early 15th century of a deed, evil, wicked, having the property of destroying or being injurious, which right now that's them Genesis niggas, man. You know, it says through covetousness, through want, through greed, shall they with vain words make merchandise of you. Yeah, they just want your money, man. Jude 4, certain men crept in unawares, turning the grace of our power into lasciviousness. Which is inclined to lust, lewdness. Galatians 2 and 4, false brethren unawares brought in. These are inside the house of the Most High. They're in fellowships, camps, group chats, congregations. And I understand why certain brothers in the truth are more recluse and to themselves during the week, man. Because you can't trust every nigga in this truth. Not everybody's a brother, man. It says a real brother, a real sister. It says they might know Hebrew, precepts, breakdowns, but their spirit is off. Right. Are they exhibiting the fruits of the spirit, man? You know, it says now combined with First Peter's chapter 4, verse 17, judgment begins at the house of the Most High, meaning many. And hey, if I'm a false prophet, hey, I want to be put to death right now. You know, I'm ready to go right now. If I'm a false prophet, I'm ready to go right now, man. And this is something I've been saying this. But until Yahawah Shem Shah makes that move, I'm gonna continue to pray for to be led in righteousness. I'm gonna continue to pray for the Spirit to check myself, to examine myself. You know, I'm gonna continue to ask to do the right thing, man. I'm not one to bullshit, waste time and fade the funk, man. You know, I'm not I'm not thrilled about being around a lot of people anyway. To be in a camp or in a group, you know, just because of, you know, and it might be a demon just because of the way I ain't gonna say tortured, but the way I was raised when I was a kid. I was locked up in a room all fucking day, all night, like on some solitary type shit. So I didn't have interactions with uh, a lot of people when I was growing up as a child. I didn't have a lot of friends because I couldn't go outside, you know. So I'm used to being alone. I'm used to, you know, as they say, a lone wolf. I'm used to that shit. It's not it's not a problem to me, you know. It says many many meaning many false brethren will be judged before the obvious wicked of the world. Yahweh Shah's direct cut, Matthew chapter 7, 21 through 23. Many will say to me in that day, Yahweh Shah, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. You know? And that's you not being taken up into those ships. Luke chapter 13, verses 26 through 27, same spirit. We have eaten and drunk in thy presence, taught in our streets, yet he says, depart from me. You know, because you weren't a true prophet, man. You know, and uh, you know, and in my own sick and twisted head, to die for this truth means more to me to be delivered in a chariot, man. To be a martyr, to die for Yahweh Shah as he did for us, as he did for his friends, which a lot of you wouldn't even you wouldn't risk your life. You wouldn't put down your life for the man next to you. You know, so to return the favor means more to me than actually being delivered in a ship. Because, you know, Yeah, you did the work. Yeah, you endured on to the end. Yeah, you got delivered from a chariot, and, drinking wine, and you celebrated America's destruction. But it's another thing when you look into YAHAWAH's eyes and he knows that you willing to die for him, man. And you proved it. And in consequence, with us or like-minded men willing to die for him, we're willing to live for him by doing what he wants and needs us to do and to be obedient unto him in our lives, which we're going to see a lot of you niggas are scared to die and that you love your life. It says these are Israelites who knew the name, did lessons, did the work. Yet Yahushua still calls them workers of iniquity. That's exactly false brethren, prophets, including those in camps, if their works are evil. How 1 Peter's chapter 4, verse 17 plus Ezekiel 9 overlay to your statement. Your statement. Yahweh is going to kill all false brethren, prophets, including in GMS. Run that through the precepts. And already read the precepts. But this is judgment begins at the house, the sanctuary. 1 Peter's chapter 4, verse 17. Judgment must begin at the house of the Most High. Ezekiel 9 and 6 begin at my sanctuary. So the first casualties of Yahweh's judgment are from within his own supposed people, especially the leaders. And we're still waiting on General Gahana to drop dead. And really deep down inside, niggas just trying to mimic somebody else, man. I sense that too, because certain things that I would say, then he'll later on say the same shit. I remember one time there was like a spirit that was on me, and it was like a rush, and I think it was when I was riding my bike about 10 or 15 miles to the gym. No, it was about 10 miles to the gym, maybe less, and I had my training mask on. And it was just like a rush that came over me, and I felt like, it was a spirit that came from, YAHAWAH Shem outside. And later on down the line, this dude has the same occurrence, allegedly. Or the time that, something took over me and all I did was just pray and ask and was crying. I was on my knees praying, asking and crying for, YAHAWAH Shem outside for forgiveness and, such and such and such. And, it was, I couldn't control it. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't break out of it. It was just me, just praying. I don't even know how long it was, man. It could have been for hours, just nonstop. And there was someone that was there, and it was like, I never seen anyone pray like that before. Not the direct words that they said. They said something to that effect. So I never seen anyone pray like that and believe in their God like that before. And then, the same nigga, he want to act like he went through the same situation. So, hey, the Most High is about to make a separation. And a lot of you hiding behind these acronyms that ain't right. you're gonna get put to death, man. You're gonna be found out, and this might just be the year 2026, where it's the completion of you niggas, man. And if hey, if I'm a nigga, then I need to die like a nigga, because that's the mind state of YAHAWAH Shunyao Shah. So therefore, like I said, I'm in full agreement and fully submitted. But I hope that I die in righteousness. I hope that I die in the light in the sight of Yahweh Shem Shah, uh, laying down my life for him. Verse 2, it says, He is no respecter of persons. Romans 2:11, no respect of persons. Acts 10:34, Yahweh shows no partiality. So camp name, seniority, subscriber count, or reputation does not protect false prophets. Right? It says false prophets are guaranteed destruction. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1-3, swift destruction for false teachers. Jeremiah 23:15, I will feed them with wormwood and make them drink the water of gall. Ezekiel chapter 13, verses 14-15, Yahweh breaks down the wall they daub with untempered mortar, a shit wall. 4. False brethren sharing in the same fate. Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 9-10, prophet and inquirer punished together. Jude verses 12-13, spots in your feast. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And that also goes into, a lot of you niggas, you have hate in your heart when you go to the Passover. You're holding on to grudges for years ago, but call yourself eating in Yahweh Shah's Passover, man. So you've been eating it unworthily all these years. You're supposed to forgive your brother before you go to the Passovers, but you niggas just keep it all tucked away deep down inside, and you ain't never gonna let it go, because one day you want to see somebody else falling into a destruction, not knowing that the Most High could have you in that destruction. It could happen to you. It says, anyone following false prophets without discernment gets hit too. All you niggas following these IUSUPK, GOCC, IUIC, Genesis, Sakari, Pegasus, Gorilla Pegasus. You're going to get hit too, unless Yahweh has mercy and pulls them out, right? So yes, if a man is a false prophet, brother, Yahweh's judgment is death and destruction, and that applies to any camp, including GMS, because the scriptures judge everyone. You don't got a cloak or a magic force field just because you're in these camps. Now, you're supposed to be in a camp. You're supposed to bow down your neck to order. But being in a camp is not what makes you of the elect. Etymology and name overlay, Yahweh in his house. Exodus chapter 3, verses 14-15. I am that I am. This is my name forever. Psalms 83:18, whose name alone is Yahweh, GMS pronounces that as Yahawah. The key point, this name is tied to covenant with Israel, jealousy over his people, and judgment when they go off. House and sanctuary in name context. Ezekiel chapter 36, 21 through 23. Yahawah punishes Israel because they profane, which profanity is anything outside the temple, his holy name among the heathen. He sanctifies it by judging and then restoring them. So when men claim the true name but teach false doctrine, abuse authority, or live wickedly, they're profaning the name, and he must judge them publicly to clear his name. That's exactly the spirit of Ezekiel 9. Start at the sanctuary. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 17. Judgment starts at the house. Which a lot of these scriptures I already read, so I'm probably gonna do this. I'm probably gonna save it and do this for camp. But I'm gonna read this. It says, false prophets are a test. Yahawah uses them to separate the sincere from the wicked. Then he kills the false and delivers the mark. You know? And, like everyone says, when the internet gets shut off, it's going to be a sifter as well. I say, hey, man, if you really want to know who's really about this truth, make a decree that, for a set amount of time, everyone got to do the work on their own. And then when everyone comes back, you know who's really sincere or not. Because when you don't have anybody telling you to do something, you're going to become lazy and not do it. But when you're really sincere and, you really care, you're gonna end up doing it regardless. You ain't going to need no one holding your hand, man. But that's just a thought. I'm not saying, that it should definitely be done, but that would be an interesting thing to do. That would be a major sifting agent for those that are really about the truth, no matter what, to those that are not. So with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect was edified, and I'm gonna say shalom.